Last week, E. Jean Carroll, inimitable badass human being extraordinaire, published her latest book called Not My Type: One Woman Against a President. So that was the occasion for the following conversation I had with her. We talk about the book, of course, which is brilliant and you should buy it. But we also talked about the fact that she and she alone has gone up against Donald Trump and won, not just once, not just twice, but 3 times. So we're going to get into all of it, and we get a little personal because I am an extremely lucky human being, and E. Jean Carroll is a very dear friend of mine. So I hope you enjoy this extraordinary conversation with this extraordinary person as much as I did. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, with me, the inimitable, the slayer of dragons, the brilliant author, the brilliant badass, my friend, E. Jean Carroll.
Mary, thank you very much. I love seeing you. I love seeing you. I could see you all day and all night into next week.
Sounds like a plan. In the meantime, we are here for a specific reason, other than the fact that honestly, I just wanted an excuse to hang out with you. But you just published on Tuesday your new book, Not My Type: One Woman versus a President. And I want to talk to you about the book. But before we do that, I also want to let everybody know that this book it's brilliant. This is E. Jean. So of course it's extraordinarily well crafted and written. It's moving, it's extremely funny and witty, all the things you would expect from a book by Eugene. But also, Eugene, one of the things I find essential about it is that it is the record of an incredibly pivotal point in American history, I think.
Yes, yes, that's the first time when Robbie Kaplan got up to give the closing arguments in the first trial. That was the first time in American history that a former president was being held in a courtroom and being tried for sexual abuse. The first time, never happened. It was historic.
And it was historic for other reasons as well, or it will become known as being historic because it's also the first time one person stood up against the most powerful person on the planet and won. How did that feel?
Won twice.
I'm going to say 3 times because Donald, of course, appealed the verdict because you beat him so badly, and the appeals court just denied the appeal. So 3 times we're looking at right now.
Mary, it feels fabulous. It just feels fabulous. I went up on the ceiling. I was knocked off my feet, flew to the ceiling, and I have yet really to come down. I am still sort of flying around with the joy and happiness of having done it. It is an incredibly powerful feeling. On the other hand, people want to take me off the knees every 2 minutes because I won. So
yeah,
we have the highs and we have the lows, but the highs are a million times better. As you know, the highs feel.
Well, I think what's important to point out here is that you are a fundamentally optimistic human being. And that is one of the things that has always impressed me about you, but quite frankly, also mystified me because of what has been thrown at you. And you have negotiated these incredible shifts and these incredibly dangerous moments because I think it's important for people who may, who are aware of the trial but may not think about it in this context. It was not E. Jean Carroll versus Donald Trump. It was E. Jean Carroll versus every single person who supports Donald and is a member of his cult.
I hadn't
So,
thought of that, but you're right. That didn't occur to me. No, I
so
just
that's took a level of courage I don't think most people on the planet can understand.
Mary, you know this better than anybody listening to this or whoever will listen to this. You know better than anybody. You watched him when we're children. Our eyes are, we have a clear view when we're children. Our judgment is as sharp as it will ever be in our lives. And
Yeah.
that's how you saw the president. You saw him when you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, growing up. You are just completely sharp eyed about that. Me, who I saw in court, was an old, elderly, sort of looked like an old gigolo guy with saffron makeup and his hair like Barbara Stanwyck in Ball of Fire. There he's sitting. I'm thinking, what the hell? Why are people frightened of him? He's an old nothing. I don't get it. Why would we chase after and bow and bend the knee? Oh God, hello, ABC. Bend the knee. Hello,
Yeah.
wall firms. Bend the knee to this old guy slathered in makeup and hair. I don't understand. Mary Trump, explain it to me. Can you explain it to me?
I can.
Okay, do. I'd love to hear.
Very briefly, because I'm much more interested in talking about
I'm
your
more
book,
interested in what this. Come on.
but I will briefly. Donald is a mythical creature. Like his entire story is a myth that my grandfather told, and he was presented to the world as a savant, as a tycoon, as a
Oh,
self-made person,
uh,
and because of his various psychopathologies, he's
I'm
very
writing this
easily
down. I'm writing it down. Yes, go on.
he's very easy to manipulate, and for various reasons along the way, from my grandfather through to Vladimir Putin, much more powerful, much more intelligent people found him of use. So now
Oh,
he
this
had
is a great.
borrowed power, but now he has very real power because 74 million people decided to make him president of the United States again. And I that brings us to something that we had talked about.
Mary, can I just say that was brilliant? You should write a book. Oh, wait, you did.
Oh, wait, I did already, but
You
much
did.
more importantly, you
Okay.
just did.
Okay.
And oh, before I forget, also everybody, Eugene has a phenomenal Substack called Ask Eugene, so please subscribe to that
Thank you.
as well, and I'll talk about that later. But before we came on air, we were talking about how weak Donald is, and yet because of the circumstances, he does now have this position in which he holds extraordinary power. Whether it's legitimate or not doesn't matter. He has it. And in reading your book, I was reminded about something I've thought about a lot, just how personal this is.
Oh,
Because, and I have to be honest with you, I detached myself from it because it's such a difficult thing to process. But the person you're writing about who did this horrific thing, who committed this horrific crime against you, which thankfully he will ultimately pay for, is my uncle. And I find it one of the most amazing things that's happened to me in the last 4 or 5 years, that it is kind of that because of that you and I got to know each other
right,
through Robbie Kaplan.
right. And
So,
knitting and knitting.
and
We were
knitting. Yeah. So it's very I'm wondering in writing this book how, because it is so deeply personal, how you were able to find enough distance to basically excavate these very painful moments. And I don't just mean the moment itself, the moment that brought you to the trial and Donald's defamation of you, but the preparation for the trial, in which it seemed to me at every turn like who you are the quintessential E gene was challenged because it just wasn't the right way to be in front of a jury. That
And
made me crazy on your behalf.
well, that's the that's the hilarious part. They had to work weeks and weeks to pound it into me. They had to take the E gene out of the E gene and calm me down. Mary, it was a high comedy. They had to take me, not change me, just dull me down to where I look like spilled milk on the linoleum. They needed just to calm me down because I wanted to get on the stand and tell stories and make jokes. And Robbie Kaplan let me know the jury does not want their time wasted. They've got dinner to cook, they got their kids waiting, they just want to hear the facts. They couldn't get it into my thick head, just stop talking. EJ, stop. And
Pause.
pause. One time in one session, 17 times. Pause. Pause before you speak because, Mary, they thought that if I paused before I spoke, I would tell the truth. And if I told the truth, then that means I would be considering what I was going to say. I never considered what I was going to say. I was just waiting, going 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, and then I'd say something because I don't, I just come off because what we're talking about, I don't want to consider.
Right.
I don't want to consider what this trial is about. I don't want to consider any of my answers because all my answers are horrible. It's
Right.
all about horrible. So I didn't want to consider. But I did learn to shut the hell up and just say yes, no, and give as little detail as possible. And that was the right way to go. That was absolutely the right way to go.
Well, and what you know well is that it's very easy to tell the truth. And you don't
Yeah,
need
it's
to
the
consider
easiest.
anything, really.
It's easiest. If you run off on even a slight fib, then you have to remember the slight fib. You even have to remember the exaggerations. That's very difficult for me because I tend to, I think I told you it's just, well, before we were on there, I made some huge exaggeration. You immediately corrected me. So it's a natural thing for me. Oh my God, you look like you've lost 85 pounds. Actually, Eugene, I lost 8. So that's so yes, the preparation for the trial was, I gotta say, hysterical, funny.
And that's one of your great gifts is finding humor in things that other people may not be able to find humor. And it turns out, though, that that doesn't always work in certain contexts. So, one of the moments in the book that I found fascinating was Donald's lawyer, Joe Takapina,
Uh,
kind of going after you for laughing. And I wanted to talk about that plus the laughing and not screaming, because that to me was this perfect distillation. That, of course, and your clothes, like the deep interest everybody had in what you were wearing. But none of the men, of course. It's just like it's such a perfect distillation of what women go through, what the
yeah,
expectations of women in these horrific circumstances are. And I think that you, in this, first of all, by example, but in this book, make this brilliant case for not letting people do that to women anymore.
well, Trump's defense attorney, Joe Takapina, shoulders out to here, tiny, tiny waist, built like Popeye, got a great loud, full voice that rang up to the tops of this federal courtroom and out to the walls of, the vibrations. Extremely talented. Got Michael Jackson acquitted. Got ASAP Rocky off. Remember Natalie Holloway when she was bludgeoned on the beach?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Takapina kept him out of jail for like 13 years. He's the go-to guy for bad guys.
Yeah.
And Trump hired him to defend him. And Joe Takapina did a great job. He presented a case that I was a liar, a gold digger. I was looking for attention. But mainly, his case was I did not behave like a woman. Some of his evidence was I would go to a party where, by the way, you were, Mary, that fucking party. He brought that party up about 5 times by saying, and she goes to parties, always goes to all parties, goes to parties, all because in Trump's mind, therefore Joe Takapina's mind, if I go to a party, I cannot have possibly been assaulted 25 years before.
Right. Or suffered any harm.
No, I could not, because I would be so devastated. I would still be in my house covered with a dishcloth, banging down like this. That was the perfect victim does not go to parties. The perfect victim never, ever says she's fabulous. The perfect victim never, never enjoys her life afterwards. Certainly the perfect victim never laughs when the event is beginning. And as you and I know, as women, that laughter, if a man starts to have erotic, intentions and starts to come at you, the best way to shut a man down, bang, is to laugh. Make a joke. Just kill it right there. Laughter will kill whatever erotic. So also I was nervous. And also Laura Miller said yesterday in Slate, which I thought was brilliant. It was a canary in the gold mine, in the what are they called, the coal
mine. Mm-hmm.
Because we've every American has been through 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago. We were all laughing at Donald Trump, just
Right.
like I was.
Right.
Donald Trump and I were joshing. I had no idea. I thought this was a lark. I was filled with, delight that we were shopping and buying a gift. And I was smiling and I was laughing, and boom, it turned dark in an instant. And that's just what happens right now to America. We're laughing at him 15 years before, and now what are we doing? God knows what we're about to do today with the bombs. I have no idea. But I think she nailed it. Laura Miller, wherever you are, thank you very much. I think that's a good point.
It is a great point. And another great point you make is it just the way the defense handled itself, and the way the American people have handled, a significant minority of the American people have handled themselves, shows us we have a lot of work to do in this country. And you, in talking about the focus on your appearance and how you dressed, you had a very clever corrective in the book, which I love. If you want to talk about the list of clothes and what other people wear, your description, particularly of Joe Takapina and his suits and his watches, was awesome.
Joe Takapina, $3.3 million Patek Philippe watch, $6,000 suits. You want to talk about a woman, what she has on, honey? This is what you're wearing.
Right.
Oh, Mary, we haven't talked about this. One day I walked into court wearing what I'm wearing on the cover of the book, the brown Bergdorf jacket. I come walking down the aisle, and Takapina's leaning against the jury box. This is before the court starts. The jury's not there. The judge is not there. He's leaning back, and he's got his shapely buttock up against the jury box. He's
like a tetherball. That's one of my favorite descriptions.
So he said, and he eyes me coming down the thing. I'm top. He says, Miss Carroll. I stop. I said, Mr. Takapina. He said, Miss Carroll, you're beating me at the dressing game. And I said, I can't. What? I'm not beating you. You're wearing $6,000 suits. He said, no. And then he opened up the jacket of the suit he was wearing. I recognize the name of the tailor, handmade, beautiful, bespoke. The lining, Mary, you have never seen the aurora borealis until you've seen the inside of Joe Takapina's jacket. I am not kidding you. You know what? He did what Trump told him to do. He was a much better lawyer than he actually put on in the courtroom. So, yes, clothes. If you're going to talk about what I'm wearing, get ready because this is what everybody else is wearing.
Yeah, and I think that it just reminds us how uneven the playing field is for women, and
Oh my God.
one of the most motivating things at the end of the book is you talk about how you are going to spend the vast amounts of money you are going to get from Donald Trump. But before we do that, I just talk briefly as I think I mentioned you won or he lost his appeal to the
Yes.
New York State Court of Appeals, which
Yes.
means that your victory stands. So you've now beaten him 3 times.
Oh,
And
good.
he, of course, is going to appeal it again. But we just learned today, like right before I talked to you, we learned that another, I guess, a federal appeals court. I'm not really sure. I'm getting confused with all of the courts.
No, this is news, Mary. You're about ready to present news. Go ahead.
Yeah, Donald Trump wanted to use the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice attorneys, to defend him or to bring this next appeal. And thankfully, 3 judges said no, because that's the U.S. taxpayers are not paying for you to appeal a civil case. So that's good news, I guess. The bad news is there's one more appeal left. So he is indeed appealing this to the Supreme Court?
That's on the first case on the sexual abuse one.
Okay.
They notified Robbie's team that they are sending a writ of Centauri. That means prepare for the appeal. So there's nothing, no way is the Supreme Court going to take. Well, you and I may, yeah. I wouldn't if the Supreme Court has many, much more important cases in front of them. They just can't take a case where the president has assaulted a woman in a dressing room. That why would they take that? That just is not.
No, they have other lives to ruin. Because this is not about classes of people. This is literally about 2 individuals.
Yeah, that's it. It's not no. Every woman in the country needs to yes. But
Right.
yeah.
So again, it's this Supreme Court. So however, we're hopeful. So because there is such a thing as called carried interest over time, and I think the initial bill for Donald was $83 million. So now we're looking at over $100 million with all the time that's passed and all the interest.
We're getting up there.
So can you tell us about the E. Carroll Foundation and what causes specifically you will be giving what you Donald's money to?
See, Mary, I don't want the money. I don't need the money. I don't like to shop and buy things. I'm like you. You and I don't just love to go out and buy shit. We just don't do it. I have no use for this money. I am very happy living in my hovel. But I'm going to be very happy because Trump loves his money. He loves his money. And when he has to give me a lot of his own money, I want to piss him off by giving it to things he hates.
Mm-hmm.
So, women's reproductive rights, binding the wounds of democracy, shoring up voting rights. But Mary, I would love it to support you and the Nerd Avengers and everything you're doing on our shutting the country down, because you and I are thinking that if women, particularly older women who control so much of the wealth in this country, women control so much wealth. If we all got together, we could take his wallet out from under him and control the government. We could explain how we can do that, Mary. If we explain.
Well, what we've been talking about for a long time is getting to the point where we have to shut everything down.
Yes,
And, people who can, it's stop going to work, stop using things like Amazon and
yes,
Target, and just
yeah,
just stop participating,
yes,
because I
yes.
don't see how else we do this, because the Republican Party has so much power right now. But you added a very important aspect to that. This is a movement that needs to be led by women,
Yes,
and right, and I think on the one hand, that's because, as you said, women have so much economic power. They are the slight majority of the population, and they are better on the issues, but also because I'd like to think anyway that we, if we haven't reached it already, we are going to reach a point at which people, women in particular, understand that if we can continue to go down this road, there aren't going to be rights for women anymore. So your case, one of the profoundly important things about it is that you demonstrated how much power and strength one woman could have.
one old woman, an old woman, an
Well, I
old
would
woman.
never call you old, but
But you're not a particularly smart woman. I am not particularly organized. I don't have any particular talents. I'm one old person, Mary, and if I can beat him, anybody can beat him.
and you also showed us it crucially important it is to have a community around you
Yeah, totally.
supporting you, and making sure that you have the room to do what you needed to do. And
Yeah,
at the same time, in the context of all of that, we have a country in which, despite everything, 74 million people, including a lot of women, still
yeah.
voted for this. So we have our work cut out for us. But I think you have demonstrated to us that it is women who need to lead
May I
this
just
fight.
say, Mary, be quiet. I want you to lead. I want you to lead this shutdown. I want you to lead the women. I want you to lead the women. I will be by your side. I will be your Rosa Parks. I want you to lead the women because we do have the power to shut down whatever aspects of government we decide to because we control the money, or a larger percent of the money than men
Mhm.
do. So, Mary, I am telling you, you got to lead us. I will be by your side and let us do this thing. Let us do this thing. You actually can do it. And then I want you to run, as you know, for president on the Republican ticket. But we'll get to that later. Okay.
We have a thing or two to do before we get there.
Yeah.
That took a bit of a turn. But Eugene, um, I want people to know this as well. Well, first of all, I want them to know that they need to go out and buy your book, because
Yes. Great beach read. It's
it's
funny and it's fun.
it's phenomenal. But I did want to talk about how funny it is. I mean, your ability, and again, this should surprise nobody who's familiar with your work. You have one of the great wits of our time, and your style is so trenchant, and
Oh, what a good word.
thank you,
I'm going to
but
write that
it's
down.
also true. And you manage in this book to take us from the extreme of, the horror of what actually happened and what you went through. And as I said earlier, I found parts of this book very moving and, quite frankly, painful.
Oh,
And then you bring us out of it with just your sharp observations and your ability to turn on a dime and point out the absurdity of the times in which we're living and the things that you were going through. And I think it just made it so much more relatable and accessible than it might otherwise have been.
thank you, Mary. Boy.
So just quickly, I was just curious, like, how did you get to that point of recognizing what kind of book you wanted to write ultimately? Because it started out differently.
Yeah, I turned in the first 45, 50 pages to my editor at St. Martin's, Elizabeth Dissengard, and she went, "Let's chat, Eugene." And then I got on the phone. She said, "You're not, Eugene, for God's sakes, you're not a lawyer. What are you doing here?" Because I went into the controversy about the dress and, all horrible. horrible. She said, go write your book. Write your book. Write your book. So then I just, the opening scene is Olina Haba Esquire making me list my lovers at the deposition. And from there on, I flew because it felt so good. Mary, it felt so, I'd been keeping all this in. And when I got it on the page, I thought, wait a minute, this is high comedy. This is not bad. This is not dark. This is, oh my God. And I was off and I was running and I felt better and better and better as I moved through it. And I had all the transcripts. So as your uncle is rewriting history, I'm sticking to the court transcripts and writing facts, which is what you're trying to do in your YouTube every fucking day, is trying to keep the fact. That's your job, keeping the facts in front of the American people. And that's what I try to do. And I had a hell of a great time doing it.
Well, and you did it. And again, it's a great beach read for sure. But in my view, it's more than that. And Eugene, first of all, congratulations.
By the way, I've never gone near a beach. You couldn't get me in a bathing suit. Get it?
I love beaches. I don't like bathing suits, but
I don't like to read on beaches. I don't like it.
I've never understood that, actually. I can't read a book on a beach.
But I think this is a beach read.
For those of you who read books on beaches, buy this book.
Yes.
For those of you who just read books because you like to read books, also buy this book.
Yes.
We're going to have the links and everything, and a reminder, of course, of to subscribe to Eugene's brilliant Substack, Ask Eugene.
Thank you.
I mean, I know the Substack is in its 4th year now, but Ask Eugene has been around for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, it's incredible.
32 years. Jeez.
Oh, wow. So check that out. And Eugene, congratulations, obviously, on your just quite beautiful victory. Because I know that the trial was for you, and I think Robbie was right in putting it in those terms. This was not a trial for all women, because a lot of people just don't want to hear about that. The victory, however, has been. So we owe you a debt of gratitude that can never be repaid. I hope that with the publication of this phenomenal book, you are having the best time. And I'm so grateful to you for spending time with me, because I know you're really busy. Eugene Carroll, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much. And best of luck with the book, which is going to do even better now because everybody watching this is going to go buy it.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I love you, Mary Trump.
I love you, Eugene Carroll.